tonight said anything. Nobody tonight said a damn thing. They want you to vote for a ticket based on absolutely no concrete idea about what they would do once they get in office. You said he got more progressive when he got elected governor. So you're saying every time he gets another office, he gets more and more progressive. I think that's exactly what would happen. Tonight, you did hear people say, well, we may not agree with them on everything, but at least it'll be joyful as they tax us into oblivion. I think the idea that you could run an entire presidential campaign based on the idea of vote for me to find out what's in it.
Wait a minute,
ought
Scott,
to terrify
Scott.
every American. President. I think this whole convention has really been built on trying to get people to get comfortable with the presidency without really knowing how it would operate. I mean, a lot of what we know about Harris comes from her own record, her voting record in the Senate, liberal, her statements when she ran for president, very liberal, and her actions is working for Joe Biden, which resulted in a mid-30s approval rating for the Biden-Harris administration. Now, through anonymous spokespeople, a lot of that's been attempted to be walked back. Nothing we've heard this week and nothing we heard last night would tell you what would they do if they got elected president. So as a voter, I think we need to hear a little bit more about that. All the things we heard last night from Oprah to everything else is about, hey, she's got the right vibe, so let's just vote for it and see what happens. To me, that's not quite good enough. I mean, she's obviously come a long way in the polls from where Biden was, but to get over the hump, I really do think you got to tell people, what would your actions be? The one policy she has unveiled has been panned across the board by economists and media alike since she did it on Friday. So I think she's going to have to get a little more serious about Republican pushback, and I think there's some truth to this, is that some of this is just substanceless pablum, that there's really no specificity in it, and that they ultimately think they are going to be able to fire her as the incumbent. And I think that's the question that we're really going to be answering over the next couple of months. How far can she run away from Joe Biden to prevent the Republicans from portraying her as the incumbent and then firing her as the incumbent? The country is off on the wrong track. People believe it. They still have economic anxiety. Can she shake off those vibes and replace them with this sort of esoteric unity vibe that they've been portraying on Air Force Two? I mean, but that's the race, and it's going to take place in a truncated period of time. Can she get away from him, or can Donald Trump and his campaign apparatus drive home the point that there's no blank slate here, that this is a person who's been right next to Joe Biden executing on the policies that you say have driven you crazy over the last 4 years? And there's really just a simple question for Trump to ask. If you're upset about the direction of the country, maybe you don't put the people in charge who are already in the White House. I don't know who's going to win that race, but to me, between now and the debate on September 10th, that is the argument that's going to be had between these two juggernauts. Good. The issue you didn't list in your bullets, the economy and inflation, I still think at the end of the day, the people are so upset with Biden and Harris on the economy. If the Republicans tie her to it, all of the other stuff falls away because it's the most important. Republican pushback, and I think there's some truth to this, is that some of this is just substanceless pablum, that there's really no specificity in it, and that they ultimately think they are going to be able to fire her as the incumbent. And I think that's the question that we're really going to be answering over the next couple of months. How far can she run away from Joe Biden to prevent the Republicans from portraying her as the incumbent and then firing her as the incumbent? The country is off on the wrong track. People believe it. They still had was take any amount of responsibility for her current job, which is Vice President of the United States for the last 3.5 years under Joe Biden. There was not an ounce of humility about the inflation gripping the country. She talked about immigration without talking about all the things that happened right up until this border bill that they have hung all their hats on over at the Biden White House. So to me, where the Republicans are going to be headed is all the pablum, all the platitudes, all that aside, you cannot leave the same people in charge. If you believe the country's on the wrong track, if you believe they made all the mistakes on the economy and on immigration, you cannot leave the same people in charge that have run the country off into the ditch. Until she comes up with a good answer for that, which I suspect will have to be litigated at the debate on September 10th, Donald Trump is still...
And Vice President Harris is the incumbent.
Yes, I totally agree with that, and that's the one thing about the convention that I think they couldn't wash off. They're trying, and with this new TV ad from Kamala Harris, there's just a complete ignoring of the fact that she's the sitting vice president, that she's been at the center of American public affairs for a number of years, that she has a voting record, that she has public statements, and that she has a record for the last 3.5 years. I don't know how they plan to cure that. I suspect at some point she's going to have to look into a television camera and answer this question. Can you name 1 or 2 things that you think Joe Biden has done wrong? And she's going to have to decide whether to answer that question or not. It's hard because the most consequential decisions he made, she was either the last person in the room on Afghanistan, her words, or she went up to the Senate and cast a tie-breaking vote. So I don't know how she's going to break with him, but if she wears him for the rest of the election, it will be very difficult.
Everyday prices are too high. Food, rent, gas, back to school clothes. That is called Bidenomics. A loaf of bread costs 50% more today. Ground beef is up almost 50%. There's not much left at the end of the month. Bidenomics is working. The price of housing has gone up. It feels so hard to just be able to get ahead. And we are very